Okay, so welcome everybody to today's e-clinic from the University of Wolverhampton Business School. I'm Emma Bloomfield, the Head of Executive Education in the Business School, and today I have Monica with me, who's a lecturer in marketing on our Chartered Institute of Marketing programme. Monica, could you just introduce yourself to the group, just perhaps a little bit about yourself?
Hi everyone, nice to see so many faces attend our e-clinic today. I'm Monica Chauhan. I currently work at the University of Wolverhampton delivering CIM modules, which is the Chartered Institute of Marketing. I'm a member of the CIM myself. I have delivered lectures in Birmingham, Manchester and also Wolverhampton as well. I have also worked in the private and the public sector, so I know the difference and the processes between both sectors and how to, I guess, work within the marketing departments from that as well. I think that's it, Emma, isn't it?
Thanks, Monica. So today's session is a session in a series of clinics. So there are various other e-clinics that we also have on our Eventbrite page, and this is really something that we're doing from the business school to support businesses during COVID, but also we intend to keep this as a permanent fixture really within our calendar, so that we can engage with different businesses and really just provide a little bit of support in areas that you might need. And it's really great to see so many people with us today. It hopefully shows that we're selecting the right topics that people want from us. But we also would like to hear from you as well. If you do ever have suggestions that you think the university could put other sessions on around, then you're more than welcome to get in touch with us. Our details are on your Eventbrite invite. Our email address is execed@wlv.ac.uk. It'd be great to talk to you, and as I say, if there's any sort of areas that you think might be really popular with businesses where we could support, then feel free to let us know. Again, just for those of you that had just joined, we also have the chat function on today, so please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. It's nice to, you do see your name on Zoom, but it's always nice to see who you are and a little bit about yourself. This is quite an interactive session, so we will talk to you throughout the session. I encourage you to share questions in the chat box. And you know, at times Monica might ask you to come off mute and expand upon your question or engage in some dialogue with her. We do have quite a large group, so I'll probably field questions to start with through the chat, and then if Monica wishes to ask you to come off mute to perhaps expand a little bit further, then she can do. But as I say, very informal. It's not a lecture. This is, as I say, an engaging session where we want you to get out of it what you want to get out of it. So please do share those questions or even just comments on content in the chat box. Okay, so I will hand over to Monica. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Emma. So we're here for a Build Your Brand session during COVID-19 times. What I would normally do is have some welcome and introductions, but as Emma said, we're quite a large group, about 20-25 of us. So if you wanted to put in the chat function so your name, maybe the name of your company, and a brand you could associate yourself with. And as this is a branding session, I'd like you to think about your brand as we are working through some of the slides as well. Some of my students, some of the ones that have been most interesting, some of my students have associated themselves with fairy because they feel like they're very bubbly, for example. So the main point of the session today is to get us all thinking about why we want to be a favourable brand, and how, yes, these are unprecedented times, but it's to think about the long term as opposed to just the last 6 months that we've been in and out of lockdown. So what is the purpose of today? We want to be able to influence our consumers you to purchase. So people all over the world are obviously impacted by this pandemic. But what can we do as a business, as a brand, as a marketing department? What can we do in order to help our customers or future consumers choose us instead of our competitor? And that all depends on the response that your company gives during these times. So what is branding? Branding, if you look at these logos, it can be the way that your customer perceives you. Each of these logos, if I said BMW, a certain image or idea or perception would pop into your mind. If I said Starbucks, if I said McDonald's, more playful, American Express, higher income, for example. So branding is the perception that you want your customers to perceive you for, which includes imagery, visual content as well. But what do we want to achieve today? We want to know or gain an insight on the importance of this brand. So why is it so important to brand? Why is branding so important? How can it influence the perception of your business? What also does your public want to know? So you're going to be sending out messages, but what kind of messages are you trying to send out? How is that going to be perceived by a potential consumer? So you need to understand what the public out there want from you at this moment in time. And thirdly, how are you going to do this? So how are you going to communicate with the audience? How are you going to use these types of messages in order to obtain your consumer, in order to resonate with your consumer, in order to understand what your consumer actually wants? One of the main definitions of marketing, which the CIM have said, a definition of marketing is giving consumers what they need and what they want, and giving it to them profitably. So the purpose of branding is to ensure that consumers recognize your message, and hopefully it makes them think, I need that, I want that, and I can relate to this business or brand. So why is it so important? Branding, everybody's heard of branding. We've seen logos, we've seen images, but why would it be so important? You've got a brand, your customers are aware of or start to recognize who you are. Once they know who you are, they understand whether you're reliable. It can add trust to your brand as well. Once they've maybe used you, once they've heard a review, once they've had a recommendation, it creates more of a trusting element to your brand or your business. And with trust and reliability comes loyalty. So looking at this circle here, once you've got the loyalty, you can become the market leader. So you can become better than your competitors, because people know about you, because people trust you. And with that, you could get some sort of differentiation. So as part of today's e-clinic, you need to start thinking about what makes you different to your competition, what makes you stand out, why you and not your competition. Why would your customers choose you? What is it that you can offer as a brand as opposed to your competitors? So that's what makes it really important to create value, trust, awareness, and being able to be recognized as well. If people don't know who you are, how are you going to be recognized? So that's all, I guess, the building blocks of building a brand. So one of the main things of knowing who the brand is to know your audience. So within COVID times, audiences have changed. So audiences could be your target audience, your consumers, or your potential consumers as well. So who is your audience or your new audience? So I know we're all sat here in our rooms where we, under lockdown conditions, we've been doing activities. We've probably had new hobbies. I know myself, I've never been a gardener in my life, and I've suddenly started sowing some seeds in the garden to create a bit of a bit of like some tomatoes, lettuce, what have you. So I'm a new audience for a gardening shop. So who is your new audience? You could have a new audience under the last 6 months. So you need to understand you've got the potential audience and you've got the audience that you already had. So who are your customers? It could be advisable to create a mini profile about your exact customer. So what kind of lifestyle do they lead? What do they like? What don't they like? Have you actually gained new customers within the last 6 months? What are the demographics? Is it, what gender is it? What age group is it? What income are they? All these people within your customer profile all have different lifestyles. So trying to create a target audience can help you build a brand persona. So a customer persona is understanding who your customer is. So this is Jill Anderson. This is somebody fictitious who has different goals, different frustrations. In terms of the customer journey, what are her motivations? What kind of technology does she use? Does she prefer to, under these obviously present times, she's not able to go into a shop, so she might want to use the phone. She might prefer an app. So you need to understand who is your customer, because you need to communicate with them. You need to resonate with them, which means understand what they are going through. Maybe even as much as understanding what kind of personality do they have, how do they judge things, what kind of person is she? Is she organized? Is she practical? If she's not, do you have a solution for that? I think finding a customer profile like this could really make you understand who is my customer and how can I get into her psyche, how can I understand some of her frustrations and alleviate them as well. However, customers also like to give bad reviews, to make quick decisions. Some customers buy solely on price, depending on what the product is. Some people just like the convenience, I bought it from them previously and I will purchase it again. So what is the answer to all these, I guess, anomalies? One of the answers is to know who you are. So what is your personality as a brand? So what do you want to come across as being? So if you can see the image there on the left is more about being trustworthy, the blues and the greens. The NHS at this moment in time is known to be reliable, trustworthy. Their logo is blue and white, which is meant to represent the colour of trust. As you can see, McDonald's, Coca-Cola, they're meant to be seen as being more exciting colours. The pinks more childlike, the purples also as well more classic colours. The classic black and white are meant to be very nostalgic as well. So looking at these colours, try and think about, well, what does my brand represent? Are we trying to be more ethical towards the green? Do we want to be seen as playful towards the yellows and the oranges? And imagery can also reflect some of the personality. So what images you show within your advertisement, within your social media, they all help create this perception of your brand. The type of logo you use definitely does, because that is how your customers are going to recognize you. So it's how you want to be recognized. You want to be fun, you want to be classic, put yourself within some of the values that you see yourself. So maybe start off with, what are the values of the business, the company? What kind of personality do we want to be? Do we want to be honest, reliable? But what makes us different to our competition? So you might have created this little personality of your business, of your brand, but think about what are your competitors doing as well. And say, how can we pop out? How can we be that little bit different to them? Because you don't want to have the same colour logo as your competitors. You don't want to have the same or a similar type of imagery. You want to be different, because you really do need to stand out in this current climate as well. And you want to be able to relate to your customers. So customers normally think about their feelings when they are purchasing things. 95% of decisions are created by this. So in terms of brand personality, think about, what do you want to be seen as? Do you want to be seen as exciting, sophisticated? Aker in 1987 created a brand personality model, saying that each brand could be identified within these 5 different elements. Would any of you agree or disagree with that, Emma?
We've got no comments in the chat, but I was just
No,
going to actually say, I wonder if anyone can actually tell us where they think their brand sits actually in any of those
Yeah.
5 personalities. So feel free to come off mute if you would like to share your thoughts. It'd be good to hear from some of you. Wall of silence.
I guess this is some of these brands could appear in multiple categories, couldn't they?
Yeah, definitely.
For example, Apple could be competence as well as sophistication and excitement.
Definitely.
So how does that actually drive how you want to position your brand? Do you have to focus it on one particular area, or?
Do you want to answer that, Monica? What would you do?
No, I would say this would be a starting point. Say this would be a starting point, and then you could build up even more. Because when Apple came out, I don't think it was excitement at first. It was probably more about competence. We can do this, and then they moved into excitement. So yeah, it's maybe a starting point, and then you can build on that.
I think the other thing to add to that as well is your brand personality and positioning might change depending on the life cycle of your business. So when Apple first came out, you may not have necessarily recognised them as competence because they maybe didn't have a track record of that at the time. So your positioning of your brand would change dependent on where your brand is at in its life cycle. When you're new, for example, you may not be able to go with the competence element because you maybe don't have a track record of that, but you might pitch yourself at high in the market, so you might go for a sophistication element. Some brands, I remember, I can't even remember the name of it now, but some of you may know what I'm talking about here, hopefully. There's a hand cream that is specifically for men, and it's always sold in B&Q and Wickes, and it's for builders' hands. And I can't remember, for the life of me, can't remember the name of it. And their marketing or their positioning would probably have been ruggedness. But funnily enough, I actually saw the other day that they had done an advert, and this advert was around basically, it's good enough for men's hands basically when they've been building, so it's got to be good enough for women. So they were obviously trying to go into a new market and trying to appeal to women. So they might have then gone into more of a competence personality in the terms of we're really good at looking after men's hands. So actually, women, why are you going and buying all of these fancy hand creams when we've got just the product that you need? So their personality perhaps has changed slightly because the ruggedness might not have been as attractive to that audience. So you can change where you position your personality depending on what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. Does anybody have any thoughts on where their own brand might lay in terms of personality? And it doesn't have to be any of those words. Any thoughts on your own brands in terms of what personality they convey?
Can I just add to this?
Yeah.
I work as a private psychologist delivering training, and my brand has always been very green based. I've actually got my business card here, and it's got like a tree on the top, and then it's like the roots coming down, so you've got the imagery of almost like the brain in two halves, so the mind and the body.
Yeah.
And I'd just be interested to know, because there's not really, other than Rolex on that personality chart, where the green comes into it and what your thoughts are with regards to that as a brand.
Monica?
As in comparing to Rolex?
I think what we
The
mean...
colour.
Yes, it's the colours. So I suppose they're two separate frameworks there, Joanne. So this framework is focused on personalities in terms of the words that are associated. So although you've got different colours on there, so for example, Jeep has got a bit of green on it. So although the personality might be ruggedness, the colour that's associated with that brand might be that caring, that sort of looking after people. So you have different decisions to make around obviously various different frameworks. So when you're looking at your logo, you would be making a decision on what colour should we have to convey a type of personality. But equally then, the personality element is when people look at your brand, what is the personality they perceive? So if you look at Rolex as a customer, you would perceive them to be sophistication. So there's the colour that you would choose when you're developing your logo, but equally it would be then this is about customers' perceptions of what they perceive your personality to be.
So it's kind of like a person, really, isn't it? So your personality is what is you on the inside, and your logo is what you see on the outside, really. So it's two different elements. So my personality, I might be an introvert, but on the outside, you might think, oh, she's very smiley and probably a red because I'm very excited.
So with yours, Joanne, you've chosen the green to convey that sort of caring, nurturing approach. And if your brand was a national brand, you would want people, I would say, to be looking at your logo and thinking probably sincere, I would have said, in terms of personality for the type of business that you're in. And perhaps if your logo looked different or looked maybe a red colour, for example, people may not necessarily associate that with sincere. They might look at it and go, oh, it's more excitement because it's bolder. So it's sort of the different decisions that you have to make to try to predict what a customer is going to think when they actually look at your logo and what feelings that they would associate with the personality of your brand. So hopefully that answers your question. Anybody else got any thoughts in terms of their brand?
It's always good to do a bit of market research as well, Joanne. So maybe ask 10, 15 people, what do they think of this, of your logo, and see if it does match what you want their section to be as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Does it go deeper than this, though? I mean, we're looking at logos there, types of logos, colours and so on, but the positioning of it on your letterhead, how prominent it is. I mean, I personally, I've got a great idea where I fit, where my business fits and what I want to get out of it and how I want an idea of how the logo wants to look. But should I now be in a position where I should be going to some kind of marketing expert or somebody who can advise me further on it, rather than sort of choosing to try and design things myself based on other people's images? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think have you just had your logo designed, or is it something that's been
for a long
time?
To be honest with you, Emma, I've run my business for 30 years, would you believe, without a logo, without a website. all the business I've done is on a recommendation or word of mouth. It's now got to the stage where even before COVID, actually, I was thinking of, I say rebranding is wrong, developing a brand to take it further. And it's the first time I've really looked at it, to be honest with you.
Okay, so it might be worth potentially putting your logo in front of what you would see as your potential customer, and asking people what personality they would associate. What does that logo represent? So for example, I don't know you and I don't know your business. So if you showed me your logo, I could potentially say, well, this is what I think when I look at that logo. And then you need to try to understand, is that what you want customers to think when they look at your logo? And then when it comes to the actual marketing material, it's then about looking at, you know, how prominent do you want that to be? Again, if you were going for more of a sincere approach, you wouldn't necessarily put it in, you know, massive block at the top. It would probably be quite subtle and quite understated. Monica, any other thoughts on, I suppose, positioning of where that logo should go in advertising?
It should always be consistent. That's all I can say. Wherever you create a logo, ensure that the logo is exactly the same size on, say, a letterhead, on the website, choose maybe 1 or 2 images on your website, on your letterhead, everywhere, and keep it consistent. Don't change the logo again and again and again. Keep it as one logo and be consistent throughout your letterhead, your website, your Facebook page, etc.
Would you say it's important to have
easily recognizable?
Thank you. Would you say it's important to have a good tagline associated with it?
You could have a strap line. The logo should kind of say it all, really.
Okay.
Some people have strap lines as part of their logo, don't they? So it depends on whether the strap line adds value to your logo or conveys something that you need to convey. But it sometimes, Monica, I don't know what you think, but I think sometimes strap lines can look a little bit cheesy. So it does, again, depend on your business. Hospitality, that tends to be, especially in America, where there's a lot of strap lines, but that is for that customer service, smile, cheesy sort of approach. So it depends on whether that fits with the personality that you want to convey. So I think, you know, even just sitting to start with and thinking, what personality do you want to show to your customers? Then showing people what you've got and asking them what they actually think and what feelings they associate it with it may then help you to decide whether or not to have a strap line with it or not.
Okay.
Anybody else got any questions or comments on? I know it's quite a complex subject, branding, and it's really good to hear any thoughts, or if you have any specific questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or to come off mute. I'll hand back over to Monica.
Sorry, it's Dean here. I just had one sort of query there. I guess most people in this room aren't planning on having a globally recognised brand like all those ones that you showed on the last slide. So from that perspective, I'm wondering whether the company logo and name should imply what the business actually does, so that, you know, that the person that's looking at the logo doesn't have to go and research it. So it's instantly obvious what the company does from the logo itself or from the company name itself.
Yeah. Monica, any thoughts on that one?
Sorry, I couldn't hear it fully, Emma.
Okay. So Dean was asking that a lot of the companies that aren't global, that are sort of maybe an SME or a more regional business, wouldn't necessarily have, you know, a brand where you know, for example, Apple, you look at it and you know exactly what they do. So what Dean was asking was, where you have a brand like that, should the logo sort of represent clearly what it is that the business actually does?
Yes, it should, because I'm sure initially when Apple did start out, they did say what they actually were selling. So I think with a logo, having the name of the business, like the university. If you can see on the top left-hand corner there, our logo is the W, but we also have the University of Wolverhampton next to it. So it is explaining what the logo kind of means as well. So you can have the, I don't know, WLV plumbing or something next to it, so you know exactly that is a plumbing company or that is a bakery next to the logo.
Yeah, I suppose if you just saw that W that's there without that University of Wolverhampton,
wouldn't
you
recognise.
wouldn't know that was us. So, you know, if you are that sort of business, then it might be, you know, MK Financial Services. So the MK is your logo, but then next to it is the financial services part, so that it's clear on what you would do. I suppose when you get to a massive brand like Apple, you only have to see the apple now, don't you? And you know exactly what that represents. So hopefully that answers that question for you.
We've got an example behind Simon Rose there. You know, SRM, we've got an SRM logo, but if he just presented that to me, I'd have no clue what SRM was all about. But the fact he's got the description next to it tells me straight away what this company's about. And that's quite important for SMEs, personally.
There we go. So Simon's logo, that's very good. Thank you.
Yeah, sadly, it's not my business. It's a US business, and it doesn't exactly tell you, even strategic resource management, what the business actually does. So,
thank you.
It's better than just SRM. It's given me some clue.
Yeah, that's true. There we go. So some good feedback for Simon there. Okay, so I think that's all of the questions. That's everything from the chat.
Okay.
So we'll hand back over and let you carry on to the next part. Thank you, Monica.
So I'll move on to the second part, which is understanding what the public actually wants and what do they actually want to know. So we, as a business, you need to be able to communicate how supportive you are being to your customers. You need to offer reassurance and advice. This is something that is imperative within these times. So you need to show that you understand what your customer is going through. You need to be able to communicate with them about some of the health and safety things that you are putting into place, as much as saying, you know, you need to wear face masks, you need to, if you have a cough or fever, don't come into the office, for example. Something like this is very important because the customers, the public, need to know that you are aware of what is happening, and they want to know that you are, they want to be reassured basically that if they do come into contact with you or your business, how you are going to deal with things as well. So they want to know, so in terms of messages to send out, they want to know your commitment. So what are you committing to your customers during these times? So are you offering any support? Are you facilitating any information? Even something as simple as saying that you're all in it together. You could address customer concerns. So if there's a concern about people not wearing face masks in the office, you could say we ensure that everybody is wearing face masks. You could offer certain vouchers or discounts. The main aim of sending a message is to create some sort of relationship. So the messages of communication ensure that your customers understand what you are trying to say, and it's to build a relationship with the people around you, whether it is the community, whether it is the staff, or whether it is potential customers as well. People might not be buying your products or services at this moment in time. It may be due to financial reasons, it may be due to shielding, isolation, whatever. It could be due to other reasons, but people will remember how your business or your brand treated the people that they know and love. So if for example, you're giving a discount code to people, to NHS workers, people will remember and think, oh, actually that company was really kind, or For example, there is something like this. The Newport Village stores said that they're doing deliveries to elderly people during coronavirus times. So stay local, cut the risk. You need to ensure that the messages that you're sending, you're trying to connect by showing empathy, by showing that you're supporting your consumers, because that's what everybody wants to know now. Everybody wants a bit of compassion. People are going through a lot, and it's about comforting your customers as well, or potential customers, or customers that you might have in 5 years' time. People will remember, oh, actually that business, that service, they were really friendly. They were adhering to coronavirus guidelines. They did really well. That's something small that you could, small changes that you could make, and it's all about connection with your consumer and building a relationship as well. So moving on to the third part, what are the different methods we can use to communicate? So we've got some messages. I want to tell my consumers that I'm available 7 days a week. How do I communicate this? So what does my consumer like? What are their likes and dislikes? So my consumer might like to download an app, for example. So what methods how can we communicate these messages? So there's a variety of ways of communicating, which we could work down the list. So obviously there's your website. You definitely need to have a website. You need to build your messages, your images, and create some sort of online interaction. So if you've got something free or a service free that you could give to your consumers, you could obtain their details and create, say, newspapers by creating an interaction, by creating a little relationship with them. And with that, you could send out emails. So not just emails, look how good my products and services are. Maybe emails about how they could, I don't know, amend the way that they shop, for example. So you could put in links or videos about what you're offering. For example, I think last time we mentioned if it was some sort of National Cookie Day, if you were a bakery, you might put a video on how to make cookies, for example. So not just about creating all these push messages, oh, look at me, look how good my business and services are. Maybe looking at what else is going on in around the world, and maybe adding a bit of humour and making it a little bit light as well within newsletters. You could also, depending on your consumer, send out text messages or WhatsApp messages if you have their details. Some consumers might think, oh, I don't really want to receive a text message. It just depends on the type of the consumer. Most, I would say, 20 to 30-year-olds are happy to receive text messages. Some people aren't. You might need to do a bit of research around that. Once you know who your customer is, find out more about them. What are their likes and dislikes? So that's where the customer profile comes back in. It also comes back in knowing what social media they use. So some people may prefer Facebook. Twitter is more about, I guess, news images, news flash images. LinkedIn is more about networking through your business network. Instagram is more visual. So depending on your service or product, you choose one or two or maybe even three elements of social media where you would communicate the message about your connection to your consumers. You could also create a blog or a vlog, which is a video blog, talking or describing some of the elements of your working day, or elements of the services that you offer, elements of how you've worked with certain clients. So it's all about sending a message across, going back to your logo and your personality, the blog, the vlog, the social media, they should all tie in with the message that you're sending out as well. So your blog, if you want to be seen as being ethical, your blog should give that type of story as well. So you could say how much recycling you, I don't know, offered this week, or how many, or your vlog could show some of the recycling elements, for example. So you could actually demonstrate in a video what you are trying to show your consumers. So in order to build that relationship, you could also do some podcasts, webinars like this, to see how your consumers respond. But I think these podcasts, webcasts, webinars could be more informational. So how do you get, for example, if you're a plumber, how do you get that tap fixed, for example? What's the 3-step process of changing, I don't know, a LED light bulb? That's something that you could start thinking about in order to give information to your consumer, as well as maintaining a relationship with them. You could create videos. I'm a firm believer that videos, people love watching videos. They like seeing demonstrations. How do things work? What can I do at home in order to make this happen? So there's lots of areas that you could put that on. So you could do it live, like a Facebook live session, or you could just create a video, put it on YouTube, and then you can see how many people are liking it, sharing it, or even watching it. You could also create an app, so that's an application, or venture out and give it to somebody else to create an app, and the message is to be consistent. So when you are creating an app, it's something that they can download onto their iPad or on their phone, and that way you've got your customer details and they are able to understand and contact you quite quickly. They are able, once you've got an application, you're able to communicate messages right onto their mobile phone. So it's a direct communication as well. But what kind of content would you need? So the content of the messages is to be real life. So there's no need to be making up stories. Use real life examples. Use what you use in everyday life. People like to relate to things that know that it is real. So don't think that, oh, I can't create, I'm no good at creating videos. It has to be, it's nice if it's authentic. People, if your camera's a bit fuzzy or shaky, that's more authentic than a all-purpose built video that people might not believe, because they may see it more of an advertisement as opposed to something that you were doing while you were working. In terms of content, consumers like to look at recommendations. So I don't know about yourselves, but whenever I buy something, whether it's off Amazon, whether it's off anywhere else, whether it's a new company, I like to see reviews and recommendations. I like to ask family or friends, depending on what the cost is, who do they recommend for this type of business? What kind of reviews are there about this certain product? And recommendations and reviews are probably one of the two best real life content that you can put onto your website. It's a message that you can send across quite quickly, and people believe them. People believe recommendations and reviews more so than an advert going out. The type of content needs to be real life. So it needs to be, we're here for you. have a look at our reviews. There is a model, the ADA model, which is when you're creating some sort of message, you want to be creating some sort of awareness. This is who we are. The interest, you want to gain interest from your consumers. You want them to desire you, so they may compare you to other competitors, but then you want them to take action, which means to purchase your product or services. And by doing this, by working through your real life stories, by working through recommendations, and by working through reviews, that's how you build, I guess, the viral part of your business. People want to know, what did other people experience by using your brand, by communicating with your brand? How did they, yeah, you might have made, or you might have delivered a product in the wrong place, but how did you rectify things? So people want to know what happened, what was the story, and that's a real life, I guess, message that you can send out. Look, we did this, but then we rectified it by doing this. And the reviews, people always look at reviews in order to gain trust from the business as well, or even tips.
Okay, so we haven't got any comments in the chat box at the moment. I don't know if anybody wants to come off mute and ask any questions at this stage. I know we've gone through a fair few slides since we've last spoken, so I don't know if anybody wants to add any thoughts. Okay, I think we're all right on there. One of the things I did want to add actually was what you said, Monica, about sort of the showing people sort of reassurance and things like that at the moment, and then you mentioned about videos as well. I think it's, you know, at the moment especially, this authentic side is probably even more pertinent than it's ever been. If you're about to rebrand or start branding and you are about to invest in a, shall we say, gimmicky type video, think about, is now really the right time for a gimmicky type video? Or actually, would your potential customers prefer you know, a video of you talking or having a conversation with them? Because I know that when I've had certain communications from certain businesses at the moment, those more personalised ones are, they're just more authentic, aren't they? And I think, you know, even being on here, one of the reasons I said at the start was it would be nice if some people would like to put the camera on, because the people that have put their camera on, although I've never met you face to face, obviously, I still feel as though I've got that sort of, I'm talking to you and having a conversation with you. And I think that's quite important at the moment, because that human aspect, especially in business at the moment, I think is quite critical. So it's just about thinking, you know, if you want your brand to be perceived positively and, you know, reassuringly, then think about the messages you're putting out there. It's really critical at the moment that you don't come across as callous, shall we say, by possibly promoting some wonderful, or what might seem like some wonderful special promotion, for example, that might be actually taking advantage of the current situation, or could be something that people are really not going to think about at the moment. For example, if you were a will writer and you sent out some special offer on 50% off having wills written at the moment, probably not the right time to be doing that. It's not particularly sensitive. Somebody could have lost a family member because of the current situation. If somebody wanted to engage with a will writer at this precise moment in time, I would imagine they would rather do that with a human being. So maybe watching a video that you've talked about the support you might provide them, or the help and guidance you might provide them. I know if it was me and I was looking to write a will, I think I would be more inclined to go for the person who might charge a bit more money, but actually has a personality and is a bit more supportive. So it's just thinking about that when you are sort of rebranding and things, just being a bit careful at the moment of the position that you take, even more so than normal, probably.
Emma, may I say something?
Of course, Robert.
Thank you for your reassurance. You've just described exactly what I'm doing. I'm a wheelwright, or was a wheelwright. I still
Oh,
do.
really? Oh, gosh.
My business has evolved over the years into a full estate planning service, and what I'm in the process of is writing a script for a video of me confessing myself to the public and telling what I can do. So what I'm trying to, you've just explained exactly what I'm trying to do, and thank you for that, because you just give me the encouragement to go ahead and carry on with it. So absolutely perfect.
Right. I suppose
You're absolutely a mind reader. Thank you.
Yeah. Just think of it, you know, we're talking about personalities. Think about it from your own perspective, Robert. If you were looking for somebody to write a will for you, especially in these times when, especially with the situations that are going on, would you really respond to an email that says, oh, 50% off will writing?
Absolutely not.
Or are you more likely to buy off a person who's,
No.
as you are now, with you've got your bookshelf behind you, you're just being you, and you're just talking to those people and those customers.
Exactly. Yeah. And pricing has never been an issue with me anyway. I'm not the cheapest. I don't intend to be the cheapest. You know, what I want is for people to look at me and they see what they get, and that's it. That's what they're getting.
Yeah. And people will just look at your you will be your brand personality. So you said earlier about you're just starting to develop your brand. Well, actually, you could make your brand as you were the brand personality. So supportive, you know, and respectful of what might be a difficult thing to be doing at the moment. And actually, as a smaller business, I'm guessing, you know, making yourself the brand personality. You said that you work a lot off referrals, so clearly that is probably a strong point of yours.
It is. One thing I was thinking as well, we talked about reviews just now as well, and recommendations. Well, of course, even though I've been going for 30 years, if I were to put a website on there now and ask people to add review, well, there's nothing there at the moment. There's no reviews there.
There
I've
might
got
not be.
testimonials. I've got cards coming every week. Thank you, and you know, you're brilliant. Thanks very much for what you've done. So
take pictures of them.
Take photos of the cards. You know, write to some of your regular clients that you've had maybe and say, I really appreciate the card you've sent to me. Would you mind if I shared, you know, that on our website or
perfect
like that? Again, it's personable, isn't it?
Thank you.
Yeah, a thank you card is worth probably a lot more than just a comment that's plastered on a website that potentially could have even been made up, because you often comment and then it'll say at the bottom, you know, client 45 female or something like that, which is potentially not even a real person anyway. So.
Great.
Develop yourself a LinkedIn showcase page as well, which you can share around your network, and that way you can actually share interesting information about particular things, laws coming up, or statistics, why people should do that type of thing.
Right. Thank you.
Great. Some really great feedback there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else got any other comments before I hand back over to Monica?
Not necessarily about Robert's particular case, but I was thinking about a lot of what we've been talking about so far mainly seem to do with business to consumer sort of branding. We have a business to business services. We're an IT company. Would you be thinking more along the lines of you want to be branding to an individual in that company, someone who you want to sell your services to? Or from business to business, you're thinking more in terms of selling in a professional level, company to company? Because obviously it's going to affect how you handle your branding.
Monica, would you like to take that one, or would you like me to take that one?
When it comes to selling business to business, you've got a number of people within the decision-making unit. So there's at least 5-6 people, depending on the size of the business, who are involved in that. So it would be more of for me, depending on the size of your business and the businesses that you're trying to target, it would be more about trying to make an overall impression about what your company can offer. So can it offer tailored, bespoke IT solutions, or is it just a general IT company which can offer about 6-7 items on a list? So it depends what you can offer as a business, and what does your target audience want as well.
I guess the principles are the same though, Monica, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you want to be able to attract probably the 5-6 people within the decision-making unit, for example, the director, the finance person, the admin, the administrator. So there's at least 3 people within a business who will say, oh, actually, I've never heard of that. What do they do? And you kind of want to impress all 3 people.
I think also it's about matching of values as well. So when we're talking business to individual, we're saying that we want our business to mirror the values of the individual. But actually, Ben, if you're doing business to business, your business's values need to be connected to your business customers' values. So, you know, if you wanted to supply to an organisation like the NHS, for example, but you were an organisation that was more perhaps using red colours, energetic, excitement, you know, it was a bit more out there, that perhaps wouldn't necessarily be in as such alignment with the NHS's values. They might be more likely to look for a supplier that's not as out there, but perhaps more reliable, you know, an organisation that they can work with, that they know will be steady, will deliver on time. And it may not be about cheapness either, you know, so it's thinking about who is our business customer. So as Monica said, still using your customer profiles, but the business is the customer. And what would they be looking for, and what would trigger with the people that work for that organisation and align with their strategy and their values.
Thank you very much, everyone.
You're welcome. Okay, I'll hand over back to Monica. We are at 1 o'clock, so I appreciate some people may need to leave. I know Monica doesn't have lots of slides left, but you're welcome to stay with us. Thanks, Monica.
So this is one of the last slides anyway, so just to wrap it up, the lucky number 7, so your 7-step plan, 7 wonders of the world, 7 colours of the rainbow. So 7-step plan is to know your audience. So who is your audience? Remember, create that customer profile, whether it's a business, whether it's a consumer. Know who you are. So who are you? What do you represent? What are your values? What colour, what personality would you give to your brand? So once you know your audience, how would you communicate them in a suitable manner? So if your audience, like my undergraduates, your 18-year-olds, they love their digital technologies, I'd send them things via Instagram, for example, if I could. What kind of supportive messages can you send? So you could talk about your staff, what is your business doing to send supportive messages during this time. Ensure that you are connecting with your audience, use the right imagery, ensure you are consistent with your logo being the same size, the same shape, the same color on your website, on your letterhead, on your pencil, on your new pen, for example, on your giveaways. And ensure that you monitor this as well to ensure that it is working. So you might have a video that you put out, but without monitoring it, how do you know it's done well? How do you know people have liked it or shared it? So monitor it in terms of, did it do well? What else could I do better? And maybe improve on it to ensure that your metrics, the measurement of the message that you're sending out is clear. So there's 7 steps that you could work down and to take away with you as well. So that's ended the e-clinic today. Has anybody got any questions? Emma, has anybody?
We've had more of an ongoing dialogue, which has been wonderful.
Yeah.
We've got no questions in the chat at the moment. Thank you, Monica, for that. And I think, you know, that final slide really wraps up for you sort of a key takeaway from today of, you know, 7 steps that can help you with your branding for your own businesses. If anybody does have any other questions, you know, feel free to stay on and we can answer them. But that does wrap up our session for today. So it's been really wonderful to meet all of you. And, you know, please come and join us on further e-clinics that we're doing 2 a month, so there'll be 2 a month now in our calendar, so just keep an eye on our Eventbrite page. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.